Okay, hi, my name is Piotr Gnyp. I'm a head of biz dev of Walkabout Games. We are a publisher of Liberated.
So, Peter, for people who don't know, talk about what Liberated is all about. Like, give a brief overview about the game.
Okay, so first of all, the Liberated is an action comic book game. What we try to do is because we all love comic books, graphic novels, and video games, so we try to fuse them into one thing. And we are so surprised that nobody did that before us, because you can see some parts of it in different games, like Comic Zone use comic book aesthetics as a gameplay mechanics, right? You could see like the comic book cutscenes in Max Payne, or comic book story in 13, or even comic book characters in The Darkness, or even any Marvel Spider-Man game, right? But nobody did like what we are trying to achieve, so you give a feeling of reading a comic book and sometimes being a part of it. So you asked me what Liberated is. For me, it works with 3 levels. We try to show you the conflict. The first level, the story level, you have a conflict between privacy and security. It's really something that everybody should think about, even right now, because with the pandemic situation, even now you have to choose: will you install the tracking app to be more secure and safe, or not? So these are the questions that you're trying to ask during this game. I think are really right now are really important. So this is the first conflict. The second one is with the design. So on one hand, you have like really action and dynamic action game, right? With all the headshots, shooting. On the other hand, you have a really static comic book. So this is the second struggle that you see. And the third one is with the colors. The game is black and white, so this is the obvious, the biggest contrast that we can get. So I told you about what it is. The story, we did a cyberpunk noir game. Why cyberpunk? Because we live in cyberpunk. It's 2020, so the year that pen and paper RPG sets like a start of the cyberpunk era. So our story happens like a little bit more in the future, and is a story about the struggle against the technology. And why noir? Because, as I said before, we try to put a light on some really important questions and issues for us, because we really think that you should answer them, because somebody will do it for you. And if you want to show the issue from different perspectives and don't tell who is right and who is wrong, it's the classic definition of film noir and noir criminals, right? That's why it's cyberpunk noir with the noir stilistics. And that's why our game stands out from others, because if you see other cyberpunk games, they're all neon ones, right? And I think only ours is noir aesthetics.
You know, it's so funny that, I love that you brought up Comic Zone, because that's really the only other game from a gameplay perspective I can compare the game to, because that game you actually went through the panels and did things and actually fought and had input commands for each panel, just like your game does. Some of the panels are stories, but some of the panels are also gameplay elements as well.
Yeah, so we took a lot of inspiration from Comic Zone, but your character knows that he's a part of comic book, and he uses the comic book page for the gameplay mechanics. In our game, you are the hero who's reading the story, and sometimes you go into a frame and play it. So we put a lot of effort. If you talk to our dev team, if you ask them this standard question, what was the most difficult thing to do? So they answer giving you the feeling of reading the comic book. And there are many cameras on the page to give you all of this experience when you open the book and start to read.
So can you talk about some of the game elements you have specifically? Because there's some puzzle elements, there's also some shooting, there's also a little bit
sneaking,
of navigation,
puzzles,
that kind of stuff.
Yes, but most of all, you shoot, right? You shoot, you jump, then you do some puzzles, some environmental puzzles, and some platforming action. But also sometimes during the story, you will have some minor branching of the story. They won't be like the huge decisions that will change the outcome of a story, because our game is hand-drawn, so we had to draw each the panel that you see to do the gameplay. But then they give you some difference when you go through the second playthrough of the game. And sometimes you go into small quick-time events. But so you can think of it as a 2.D action-adventure game, which happens in the comic book aesthetic. So you sometimes play the game to the frame, in the frames of a comic book, sometimes you read the comic book.
Hey, you mentioned the game has choices. Do you have branching paths in your game with multiple endings, or is it kind of just a stagnant?
No. The game has one story, but the paths can differ.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
there's some minor branching in the story. So but there's some like important decisions, and we got some questions from a journalist. Can I avoid this thing in the game? So yeah, there are some like choices that will make a difference.
So talk about this world in Liberated. Like you mentioned, it's a cyberpunk world, but can you go in a little more detail? Like, what's this world all about? It seems like a very dark, gritty, kind of Sin City, anti-corporation type of world that you're.
It's really funny because when we started to design this game, we have some ideas like what should like this dystopia with lack of privacy and the government invading your normal life to, as they say, give you more security. And it turned out that we had to race with reality because in the game we have a credit score system that every citizen has, and then the China implemented it into their countries. It's like, whoa, we need to make this game faster because soon it will be like a retro game about stuff that is a past. So we've got into surveillance state when the government controls you and watches you, and there's a group of people who opposes them, and they think that the fight for freedom is the most important thing, and that you have the right to have your privacy and to make your own decisions and not to be under constant surveillance of the government. And they oppose that with every means necessary, and they recruit one of the characters, one of the main characters to the organization. But as I said before, these are for us really important issues, so we will show you them from different perspectives. And we won't tell you who is right or wrong, but might ask you at the end, what do you think?
Multiple shades of gray, right? That's the answer. There's no clear black or white.
Yeah, because we live in a really difficult world, and I think we don't understand it. If you ask people how the stock market works, they don't know. I don't know, or how the economy works, or even how the thing that you flush the water in your toilet works. Many people won't know. So if you don't know how the world works, how can you make informed decisions, right? So we're giving away our right to choose and to others because we don't know what's really happening. And I think it's important to tell that to people that this is happening, right? So that's why our game is so dark, because we went a little bit further down the road what might happen, right? And we are showing this world to the players.
Can you talk about your decision to make it black and white? Was that always what you wanted to do at the get-go? I know you mentioned film noir as one of your inspirations, but was that something you already knew in your head was going to be?
No. I can tell you that this version of the game that you are playing is the third one. So we did a lot of design choices that didn't fit. And when we took a step back, once again rethink the whole thing, and I said okay, so if we are doing this, we don't tell you what's right or wrong. This is the classic definition of a noir. We should go in this style. And to be honest, nobody did, I think, to my knowledge, cyberpunk noir before, especially in the games, but maybe not in the movies, right? Also, so that was kind of new, and that clicked for us instantly. So when we saw it, when we knew that this is the direction that we want to pursue.
In terms of UI and in-game interface, can you talk about some of the challenges? Because you're playing within panels in a comic book, so you don't have as much room to have display things like health or ammo and stuff like that. So you have to be, it's almost like every panel, like you said, is handcrafted for that specific, area in the game, and then you got to move on to the next one and handcraft an entirely new one.
Yes, so you always need to feel that you are reading the comic. Always, this is one of the things that we said to each other. We don't show you any huge, I'm saying this right? Huge elements in the game, because this would distort this experience that you wanted to give you. So when you get hit and your health level is low, then the pages start to be red, so it's spilled blood on it. But apart from that, every time it's a comic book, so we got a lot of checkpoints to have you play through a smooth playthrough from the game. So you want to repeat the long parts of the game. When you change the level, when you drop down, then you drop down to the next panel. But apart from that, we try to hide as many things as we can to give you the comfort feeling of being a part of the graphic novel.
Now you do have 3D models in your game that are animated.
Sometimes you have we try to do different stuff with the game, because also with Liberated is the first game of this type for us. We would love to do more, even with different art styles and different gameplays, because you think about it, like it's a perfect tool to transfer the comic book world into the gaming world, right? So we could work like with any story, any gameplay, any character, any art style. So with this game, you're also showing that we could do not only shooting, platforming, and puzzles, but sometimes we have scenes like from first perspective and others.
That's very ambitious because you have multiple perspectives and viewpoints. And in a video game, when you make a model of something, like 3D model needs to be changed, it's usually you go in there and you just change it. But when something's hand-drawn, it almost has to be completely redone.
Yes, so please think of it that everything was drawn. That's why the game has this length and not major story branches, because it was a lot of work for it. But also a design, just because I think because of it, the game's really stands out, and the first thing you will see in Liberated is the art style.
So, like, talk about, like, why do you think more games are not in this style? Because it seems to lend itself so well. We talked about Comic Zone earlier, but like, and people use elements of stuff like this, but they never do an entire game like this.
So this is my opinion, not my studio and not the team. But I personally think that comic books are becoming less and less relevant. But either you are a big blockbuster movie with a superhero, or nobody cares about you. So the comic books are the subject, but not the comic book, but the comic book characters. And probably because people are stopping reading also. So bringing the interactivity to the comic books may be the way to give them the second life and bring them out of the blockbuster movie shadow.
It's so funny you mentioned that, because it is like, I mean, we live in an MCU universe where it's wildly popular, but comics have never been less popular. They're still really up on the totem pole.
And even my kid, I have like 12 years old, he says like, I like to read this comic book because I can be a part of it and relive as a character. So I both get to experience the comic book story, but also I get some action. So with Liberated, we've got like the split is 50-50 reading to playing, but in different issues, because the game is divided into the 4 issues. They have it's a complete story. So they differ, the ratio differs between them. We have some of them have more reading, in some more action, but in our other games that might follow, the ratio may be different. We really would love to hear the people's opinion about this game, because we will really take our idea further and make other games in this type, or maybe in the world of Liberated, based on the feedback that we will get from the players.
Yeah, I remember years and years ago, like 15 years ago, motion comics were starting to become a thing, where people would take a comic book and animate it and add voiceover to it. And unfortunately, it didn't catch on, but it was a really neat idea.
Yeah, I don't think we have a device really good for this type of experience. Like, iPad is expensive and Kindle is black and white, and you don't have like a cheap reader of comic books yet, and there is a limit to the money you can spend on expensive issues of graphic novels and comic books. So and I don't know, like if you went through this, because the book, like you have like can have a lot of books on your device, right? And you can read them. And with comics book, like the turning of the page and peeking to other panels, like I think it's a part of an experience. You can see in our game that when we sometimes let you do it. Like you can move around this page. You can peek. You see how many panels are in front of you. So yeah.
I was gonna say, is there an underlying message in your story that you're trying to come across for gamers, like trying to teach them a lesson or have kind of a moral situation with your characters and your story in your game?
Yeah. As I said, like think about the world we are living in and answer the questions that we are asking before someone answer them for you, because they will, and the time for us to think about these issues is now, because we are moving further and further down the road to the digital world, and I think the lockdown and pandemic just speed up the process. I think we are like moving months ahead. The things that would take like years are happened in 2 months, or like moving the commerce from physical to digital, right? So these things happen within the months, and it will take years to complete this transition. So we speed it up, and this world is a world when everybody watches you and wants to learn everything about you and know you better, even when you know yourself. So think about it. And if you're cool with this, that's okay. But if not, the time to act is now.
So your game is actually coming out on Nintendo Switch as well.
Yeah, well, our game is coming exclusively, as a timed exclusive on Nintendo Switch.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really awesome. What are your thoughts on the platform in general? Because when that came out, it kind of game changed a lot of independent studios and smaller studios. They got like chance in the limelight for a change.
So first of all, we are talking that reading a comic book requires a specific device. I think the intimate contact that you have with your Switch when you're holding them close to you on your chair, it's better than like at the TV back in the back of a building room. So that's the one thing. The second thing, it teaches us a lot about performance and optimizing the game because we had to do it. And I think the support of Nintendo is a really cool thing to have. They're really supportive. We want to thank you for all the love they gave us and the spotlight on the game. So yeah, it was for us was like a really huge choice and also one.
I think it's also kind of tricky because you have, the handheld mode and the on-screen mode.
Yeah.
You have to make two assets for your game as opposed to like on PC, just make one.
Yeah, and and optimize and check if anything happens when you switch them. It was a lot of work.
So when does your game come out? When can people play it?
June the 2nd. June the 2nd, you can pre-order right now. June the 2nd will be the launch date for Europe and US, and we have a nice discount right now for people who will buy the launch week.
Awesome, Peter. Where can they go to find more information about Liberated?
You can go to liberated.games or find us on Twitter and Facebook.